the 19th day, December 2024. 2024. Hope everybody's doing well on this amazing day. Why do I always gotta struggle? Don't worry, I figure out, I get right. Everything good. Here we go. Ooh. At least I didn't get to screw up the beginning. Don't worry, don't lose hope yet. I'll screw up eventually. That's reactor 3, reactor 4, and to your left is reactor 2. Chernobyl was a single reactor. Chernobyl wasn't a plutonium mixed oxide reactor like Fukushima. At the top of that building, there is no journalists. They're pretending they're there. And the top of that building doesn't exist. But the journalists are claiming they're there, and there's a lot of them that done that. There's a lot of them. And so that means we can't count on journalists. I know, it's pretty disappointing. Oh, I hear you. You definitely can't count on the International Atomic Energy Agency. They're not your friends at all. Now, officially, nothing got out of these buildings. And the only releases started last year. That's the official story. There was 1 million atoms per square meter of xenon-133 in a study in the United States, Canada. This is a Canadian study, 20 million particles, which is even worse. It's 20 million counts per minute, per liter. And it's not just iodine-131. There was another study of iodine-129 with a 15 million year half-life. And there's many different studies, many different isotopes. This was a model of the neptunium-239 based on 20 days and 21 days of radioactive fallout. This is a model of cesium-137 from the French government based on 15 days. And what you're looking at, the entire planet is 1 million to 10 million atoms per cubic meter of air. All of these this is absurd. Just any one of these would be insane, would be catastrophic to every species. But every one of them combined, and that's just a fraction. And so they've been out there telling you for a very long time, it's like bananas and potato chips and walking in sunshine and like flying on airplanes, climbing mountains. And they use Spider-Man and the Hulk to manipulate your loved ones. They're telling people it's like eating peanut butter or kayaking. And this is simply not true. This is crimes against humanity, what we're talking about. There was 13,646 out of 38,000 children with thyroid tumors in the first year. And we're not talking about thyroids. Of course, which means for children that are developing, they're producing radioactive hormones for the rest of their lives and alter their development if they survive it. And we're talking about tumors that are 2 centimeters, which is the same size as their thyroid gland. And then the experts, incredible experts, absurd pedigrees, incredibly articulated, very well positioned, and he's the head of the Mayo Clinic, for goodness sakes, United States, and their job is to lie to you. Said nothing happened, there was no adverse effects, despite the fact all those cancers, despite the fact there was 865,000 extra cancers in just the first year. The United States didn't escape it. The West Coast was hit with absurd amount of radiation. The media pretending they're in the buildings that don't exist. This is a perpetual legacy. This is an agenda. We've seen them come from every direction. Richard Vedder from the Mayo Clinic also. Saying nothing happened, saying nothing got out. There was no releases. We got journalists after journalists making these assertions that nothing got out. The food was banned by 14 prefectures by 55 countries. This is absurd stuff. And there is a law that makes that we can take all of these people down. And it's known as the racketeering statute.
But they can be prosecuted on the racketeering statutes or promoting fraud.
And all of them can be prosecuted under that statute. And we need to go after these people. They're going to destroy everything. And they already have. And it's time to hold them accountable. It's not tenable to let them get away with what they're doing to us. It's not acceptable, and it'll never be acceptable. And Dana got my number there. I got to do some slick techniques here to bring my number onto the screen. We're going to do that just for you, because I'm that kind of a guy. That's who I am. I'm that guy. I'm that guy. I'm Dana. I am here to go to war for you. I don't care if you join me or not. I'm here to go to war for you and your children. Hopefully your grandchildren and your loved ones and their friends and families, your communities and the species. I am here every day going to war for you. I know it's hard to appreciate that statement, but we are at war. They are at war against you. Make no mistake about it. They are exterminating you in the most insidious and monstrous ways. They are using an enemy that's invisible and you can't see it or smell it or hear it or feel it or taste it or touch it or perceive it. And you can call into these shows at 709-589, we're in Canada, 4406. And I provide that every single show. Every single show. I put that out there. The nuclear industry can call up and challenge my assertions, my documentation. They can call up and have a debate. And after over a decade straight of doing this program, they have never done that, ever. They can't win that debate, right? I've been attacked and smeared. I've been shot at. I've been physically shot at and attacked. I've been ridiculed, marginalized, victimized. But I won't let them victimize me. We're the good guys. We're here to go to war. Because they have brought the war to you, and you might not recognize it, but they are gone to war against you and your loved ones. And it's important that you at least get yourself educated so you can hopefully extrapolate the information and be able to protect yourself and your loved ones. At least do that much. At least have the courage and the fortitude to do that much. So Japan's trick now is to bring in a lot of tourists. And they broke all the records in the first 11 months this year of their entire legacy of tourists. And these people are being poisoned, every one of them that goes there, are being fed radioactive food from a nuclear wasteland where they refuse to stop growing it. And the censorship on me is extraordinary. It's unbelievable the amount of censorship they do to me. But we never done nothing wrong to anybody. We're the good ones. We have the moral compass and we have the moral high ground to do the things we're doing, to talk about the things we're doing, and to make the assertions that we're making. We provide the documentation, so there's no way it can be misunderstood. And in any other planet, the whole planet would go to war against the nuclear industry. In a normal world, every human on this planet would go to war against the nuclear industry. And the nuclear industry knows it. And so they don't have to censor millions of people. They don't have to censor hundreds of thousands of people or tens of thousands of people or thousands of people or even dozens of people. They only got to censor a small handful of people. And it's always been that way, but it's never been an educational program dedicated to dissecting the lies and providing the documentation to back up the facts that are real. And that's where you found yourself tonight. If you're here, you're joining me. It's the most important story, period. There is no more important story than being exterminated with a weapon that causes the illnesses to show up later, and that the dying of radiation poisoning is absurd, painful, and it attacks everything with replicating cells. And it's a very difficult subject, just the horror of what they're doing and the reality of it. And denying the reality is the biggest mistake we'll ever make. And so we don't deny the reality here. We're very aware of the reality. We've been at this forever. Officially, I've been at it for almost 23 years. And so, after Fukushima, we launched research expeditions. And, I mean, they have a huge network of cowards that will smear me. Their job is just to make up lies and put out propaganda to denigrate my integrity, to wish you away from the truth, to make you reject me. And I'm aware of that, make no mistake about it. But I went out, and I can't switch off the truth, okay? I went out for 6 years, 6 very long years, 6 very, very difficult years, 6 incredibly difficult years, and scoured the coastline 4 to 5 months a year, and the species to your left are exterminated because of the perpetual radioactive fallout. And the typical weather is like that right there. That's your typical weather. It's miserable, tropical rainforest. And the species to your left are now permanently exterminated. We'll never see them again. They'll never come back. They're eradicated. Eradicated. They are exterminated. And that's because of radioactive fallout. Pretending that this is not true, I can understand why people would pretend it's not true. That's simply true. But the reality of it is we have an overwhelming, unassailable amount of documentation. There's, and I mean they're shipping 1 billion pounds out of each of these prefectures each year of radioactive rice and other foods. And when you eat that, eventually the radiation does its magic. And you get sick, and your children get sick, and your loved ones, your friends, your family get sick. And eventually everything and everybody gets sick. And all the species, these beautiful species, these incredible species now have been exterminated. And it's on purpose. They've done this on purpose to us. And like just building this whole operation is an absurd amount of monetary dedication, and just to get it out there 4 to 5 months a year and get everything to work, because I absolutely have to. We have to know the truth, right? And the truth is, the reactors really did make meltdown. There was 4 of them. There was 8 fuel pools. 2 fuel pools at the top of each building, 8 fuel pools total. And the inventory from the French government, for instance, just in the first couple of days, this is only based on 8 days, is catastrophic. And because you can't perceive it, you can't smell it or hear it or feel it or taste it or touch it or pick it up or throw rocks at it or anything else. Don't be lulled into complacency. This is real. And we know, I approach this from every direction. There is no direction to have the research. We're talking 4 to 5 months a year on the ocean. 4 to 5 months a year on the ocean. I don't know how we ever survived it, to tell you the truth. I don't know how we... I know how we survived. It was just... There were so many people that were praying for me. That there was divine intervention many times. And the industry prayed and incited people to attack me. And they did, all over the coastline. Many people attacked because they believed the lies. It was easier to believe the lies than it is to believe the truth. And those species were there in 2011. All of the species to the left, these species to your left, all of them were there in 2011. And so what could possibly be the catalyst for all of them species to disappear? And we know because we went back for 5 more years, the species didn't recover. They didn't come back. It was magic. It was 27,000 islands. You're talking about 27,000 islands. A tropical paradise. It would take you 71 years if you visit an island a day. It was a tropical paradise. And every island was full of beautiful golden sand beaches right around the island. And those beaches were made of shells from shellfish, from snails and mussels and abalones and scallops and gooey ducks and razorback clams and little neck clams and manila clams and many different species of shellfish. And that's what they broke down over millenniums, and that was what formed the sands on the beaches. And if you go there now, you won't find any shellfish on the beaches, but you'll find the beaches. Now, if you go underwater, you'll find some, but you won't find it on the beaches. And I think that is incredible. And I think anybody who turns away from the truth will regret it. The species to your left deserve your voice. They don't have a voice. And we gave them one. And we continue every day. And we never forget what this industry has done. And Fukushima is just one of the many events that we had. But think about the incredible, beautiful, unimaginable, inconceivable species wiped out by the industry. And the industry has worked diligently for all these years to make sure you have no way of appreciating it on your own. You have no way of comprehending the enormity of the danger that we're in. And then they're poisoning you in your supermarkets. Every nuclear power plant, by the way, is surrounded by farms. And every nuclear power plant has multiple fuel pools, decades of reactor cores in each one. And they're still splitting the same atoms as you would to power millions and millions of homes. Those atoms are sucked up by the food, and they're also distributed worldwide. And when you breathe it in, there's an autoimmune trigger. No matter which species you are, your body doesn't have an autoimmune trigger to defend against it. Japan breaks the annual visitor record with 33.4 million victims this year. And that's only in 11 months. They're bragging about it. They have the integrity of a fruit fly. That's what the Japanese nuclear industry and the nuclear industry worldwide. These are cowards in every sense of that word. And all the jails should be emptied of everything but the most violent criminals and replaced by people from the nuclear industry, particularly public relation firms. They're the most horrible creatures. They're not people. They're not humans at all. They're monsters. They meet every single definition and attribute of a monster. And calling them anything less is dishonest. The government is not liable for nuclear evacuations. Well, who is? Well, he said TEPCO is. And so you blame TEPCO instead of blaming the nuclear industry or the government, right? That's what they're doing. And then there's they have limited liability on top of that. The Price-Anderson Act is basically applicable to all nuclear reactors worldwide. And they have a very small amount they'll pay out, and be damned. If you do $1 trillion worth of damage, tough luck. Nobody will insure the industry on top of that. You built the tanks to trick you to think that nothing got into the ocean, when everything got into the ocean. Has never stopped going into the ocean, will never stop going into the ocean. And it breaks my heart that there's still no resistance. It boggles my mind that the world is still silent, because this stuff is not going to go away. The Osaka High Court ruled Wednesday the government is not liable to pay compensation. What are you supposed to do? Stay in a nuclear wasteland? So you lose everything, and there's no one hold accountable. The bishop, they paid out one. I think it was 90 people or something. They paid them $7,000 each. They lost their generational lands and farms and homes. They can't go back to the graveyards to visit their loved ones to pay respect. They had to leave everything in their home. Their pets starved to death or died of starvation or lack of water. The bond of those communities, which is a foundation of many people's lives, was just spit upon by the nuclear industry. They have so much contempt because they've never been held accountable. There is no checks and balances. And the so-called International Atomic Energy Agency, their job, and they're the third biggest donor to the International Atomic Energy Agency currently, is Japan. What they're doing is for the American side and Canadian and most nuclear countries, there is a version of laws that make them liable. And because they have so much influence, they've filled all those vacancies with themselves. They seeded the narrative with controlled opposition. And so they're the worst things can happen. The pro-nuclear community are the worst thing that can happen to any planet, any solar system. The only way they can survive is they continue to cannibalize and destroy everything. Every species, every insect, every bird, every animal, every human is the ultimate. It has to run its course, for the nuclear industry will finally die too. But the radioactive fallout from decades of emissions will never go away, and there will be no hope for any species. And we live in this one moment in history, this one time, this one little speck of history where we can hold them accountable, where we can turn the tide, where we can do what was right, where we can... I don't know if we can salvage humanity in the species. I guess I don't think we can. But we can hold them accountable. That's at least something. The future generation, at least at that point, won't spit in contempt every time that we're mentioned. Because they will, if they survive. It's going to be difficult to see how they can survive what the industry's got done. Everything is poison. All the air, all the water, all the species, all the bigger species are not reproducing, including us. And radioactive fallout is not just cancer. There's heart problems, liver problems, lung problems, respiratory, pituitary, thyroid, adrenaline, Alzheimer's, dementia. You seen that skyrocket? I bet you are. Autism, Down syndrome is skyrocketing, right? Post-Fukushima, you've seen supercell storms of typhoons and cyclones and hurricanes that are just unimaginable pre-Fukushima. The so-called climate change can be traced directly back to the nuclear industry, but the pulse event at Fukushima was the tipping point, was the catalyst for the tipping point for the planet. And post-Fukushima, this is when we see these supercell, perpetual supercell typhoons, cyclones, and hurricanes. And we don't have building infrastructures to deal with the winds that we're seeing anywhere on the planet because we've never experienced before. We we postulated that these phenomena existed on Mars, but not on Earth. There's no geological records to show that they did. And so the industry understood what it was doing, and so it filled up all the key positions in universities and medias and governments to protect itself. And then by proxy, it continues the crimes. And you got this one moment in time where you can tip that balance in favor of maybe having a future for humanity, maybe having a future for some of the species. This is your one moment. The history of humanity and the species come down to this one moment and this little speck of history. And if we don't win, all is lost. And if we do win, maybe all is lost. But we better hold them accountable. We better give them a pause before they commit their next crime. We better give them an incentive not to commit any more crimes. And we do that by using the racketeering statutes against them, the racketeering laws against them. And my voice is not falling on deaf ears. You're not deaf ears. You're listening to what I'm saying, and you know what I'm saying is true. You know intuitively now that everything I'm telling you is truth. And it's such a dangerous road, but the danger disappears as more of us speak up and more of us become articulated, more of us are able to articulate it. And so when I started running this educational program, I knew I was in for the most terrible time of my life, and it would never be the same, nor would the planet anyway, so I didn't care. My job, I was born specifically to do this. This is what I was born for. This. I was made to do the research. I was made to come out and challenge this industry. I was created and put on this planet to stand nose to nose with this industry and never, under any circumstances, flinch. Zero fear of the industry, because I understand they're cowards. Each and every one of them are cowards. They're the lowest forms of life, and they're the most cowardly forms of life. They spend their whole life avoiding mirrors because they can't look in one. And if that's not the definition of a coward, what is the definition of a coward? And all I do is I beg this entire planet at all costs to go to war. You've got to go to war against this industry. And war can be waged against them through many different campaigns. I'm just sharing information, finding people that are fighting back and trying to support them, encouraging people that are trying to educate the population or inform the population or try to hold them accountable. And you got to find a way. If you're here and you're aware, you have to find a way. You're obligated, is your obligation, not just under your Magna Cartas or your Bill of Rights or your constitutions or whatever doctrine of your country is, but under a moral compass that this is your moment in history. And you will not be defeated if you stand tall. And as long as you're honest, you can't be defeated. This industry can't defeat an honest person. It just simply can't do it. It can't deal with it. It hides in the closet, turns the light off, sucks on their thumbs and cries, poor, poor, pitiful me. But it is you that they're terrified of. It is you who know the difference that makes them sleepless at night. It is you who can look them in the eye and call them a liar and a coward is their biggest fear. Their biggest fear is you looking them in the eyes and saying you're a coward. Just that act of defiance will shatter their confidence, will shatter their deception and their deceit and their dishonesty, and will leave them wrecked, terrified to ever look anybody in the eyes again. That is the people of the nuclear industry. They are the cowards that is well on their way to destroying everything you covet. And sitting in silence is not a solution. Sitting in silence is a crime against yourself and everything you covet. Everything you love, everything you believe in. Sitting in silence is not that option. And it doesn't take a lot of courage to tell the truth, does it? And you can go through my videos and go through my playlist, and you can take screen captures, and you'll get up to speed so quick. You will get the confidence necessary, and everything else will happen naturally. It'll progress naturally. Once you are educated and informed, you're no longer living in an illusion. You're no longer living the lie. You're no longer living in that house of cards that they built to keep you in. Because the minute you touch those walls, that house of cards falls away and they lose all their power. And you can do this. You have to do this. You are the only ones that can do this. And I'm here at least 5 days a week to nurture you or to encourage you or to show you that there's a better way. Education will destroy this entire industry, the planet. You reach out to all the policymakers, you reach out to all the investors, and if they're getting 10,000 emails a day or 10,000 tweets or 10,000 Facebooks or 10,000 Instagram, they run and hide. And this whole stupid coward system crumbles, and there is a light at the end of this tunnel, and it's you. You are the light at the end of this tunnel, not me. It's you. You're the one they're terrified. They already got me geo-fenced in. But I'm not going away. I'm not giving up. I'm not slowing down. And I can't do anything else. I've done those research expeditions. I can never, ever close my eyes and escape that. I can never switch that off. And I wouldn't want to. And I was put here to make sure that there was at least one voice out there that they couldn't shut down, they couldn't intimidate, they couldn't coerce, they couldn't buy off, they couldn't threaten, they couldn't manipulate, and they couldn't deceive, and they couldn't debate. They can't debate the truth. That's their Achilles' heel, is they can't debate the truth. And they can't even see the truth without them turning to stone, turning into cowards, turning into the bumbling idiots that they are, and they know they are. They know they're idiots. Doesn't matter the education they got. You can't deny the fact that this industry is the biggest threat to humanity. Don't worry about meteorites or anything else. The biggest threat is already here. It's called nuclear. And it is busy exterminating you. And when you look at what the military is doing, the governments, it's not just American or the British or the French. This story is like the A-10 Warthog only shoots dirty bombs. Does anybody really think they don't understand the significance of doing something like that? This story from 2019, they had 35.7 million dirty bombs / depleted uranium munitions. These are dirty bombs that they wanted to dispose of because they got better dirty bombs. And they sent as many as they could to Ukraine from Great Britain, from France, from the United States. If Canada had it, they would have sent it. And it's a very humble thing that I do. It's an absurdly humble thing that I do. Because I refuse to let them win. It's not acceptable. It will never be acceptable. It's not a way forward. And that they have to resort to pretending they're in a building that don't exist in order to manipulate you, that's an absurd. That's the very definition of insane. They're not the only ones. You got an absurd amount of media pretending they're on top, 150 feet above a melted reactor. Do you think they're doing that because it's harmless and innocuous and benign to everything with replicating cells? So CBS and BBC and CNN and ABC, theoretically, certainly CBS and CNN, can be taken down for doing what they've done through the racketeering statutes.
But they can be prosecuted on the racketeering statutes or promoting fraud or presenting themselves to medical professionals as an arbiter of truth and as a neutral referee and a reliable referee of the truth. And they know that those medical professionals are relying on journal articles to treat patients, and that if they tell a lie, if they're committing fraud, that they can injure and kill people. So, I believe they can be prosecuted, and not only can they be prosecuted for those injuries, but they can be prosecuted on the racketeering statutes or promoting fraud.
And so the nuclear industry, again, these are cowards. They try to trick you, manipulate you, and deceive you. There was a comment there in the comment section. Let's look at that for a second. Why are there still leaves on the trees in Japan? So because there's leaves, Rob Starr says, because there's leaves on the trees, then I must be wrong, right? Why are there still leaves on the trees in Japan with all the nuclear fallout? Why are you ignoring the fact there's 865,000 extra cancers in the first year? Why aren't you worried about that? Why did you go that route with me? Why would you come to my site and say something like that? Why are the leaves on the trees? Why is there catastrophic cancers? Do you think everybody got health care? Do you think everybody was diagnosed? Do you think cancer is the only illness or disease or autoimmune deficiency or injury? You kind of lose hope, right? You kind of lose hope whenever you run across these people. Because they refuse to have a debate. It's always to switch and bake. It's hard to believe it. Why is there no insects on the trees? Maybe ask that question. Look over here, don't look over there. Don't look at the harm and insidiousness and the monstrousness of what's really going on. I just disrespect people like that. Because they took the coward way. species wiped out on an entire coastline of the Pacific Ocean. And somebody's asked me, why are there still species on the tree, still leaves on a tree? How can you watch what I'm doing and not have any empathy? Why the apathy? Do you really think the ban? I mean, the food still grew. Does that mean the radiation doesn't exist? The leaves are on the tree. Does that mean the radiation didn't happen? Extreme increase of mortality caused by cardiac diseases. Catastrophic cardiac disease. In a single month, a massive spike in heart attacks. Not just cancers, right? United States, the water's not safe to drink. 50 atoms a kilogram in humans lead to irreversible lesions in the vital organs. But let's worry about there's leaves on the tree, so maybe, just maybe I'm wrong. Nuclear radiation, most carcinogenic thing in the world, but there's leaves on the tree, so perhaps I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. See, put out that little seed of doubt in the most cowardly way possible. Because not like my phone number is not on the screen enough times for you to call in yourself. Because you can't do that, can you? You can't face me like a human, like a normal person. Disinformation by the nuclear proponents try to confuse the public. That's what we've seen that time. We've seen thousands of these people over the years, haven't we? How low doses of radiation causes heart diseases and strokes. Child's risk of cancer from radiation is actually up to 1,000 times higher than an adult, because the radiation gets in their thyroid glands and their skeleton and produces radioactive hormones and radioactive stem cells for the rest of their lives. And this is true for insects and birds and mammals and animals and everything else. Officials sharply raised radiation levels for residents to get the iron dye pills 75 times higher than the World Health Organization recommends for children. But let's worry about the fact there's leaves on the trees in Japan. Let's forget about every other facet of nuclear effects upon everything with replicating cells. That girls are 4 times more vulnerable to radiation than boys are. If you get rid of the female populations of every species, guess what happens to the species? Don't be fooled by the industry's consultants. Leaves on the trees. Low doses of radiation does cause cancers and heart problems and liver problems and lung problems and respiratory and pituitary and thyroid and adrenaline and Alzheimer's, dementia and autism and Down syndrome and schizophrenia. And Rob's probably got schizophrenia. Data shows large spikes in deaths, particularly infant deaths, in the 14 weeks following Fukushima. But let's worry about there's leaves on the trees in Japan. Let's worry about that. Let's forget about all the other perpetual facts and worry about the leaves that are on the trees in Japan. So Dana must be wrong. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission wants radiation exposure limits 100 times higher because they can't contain it or control it. Children with over 11 atoms, a lousy 11 atoms a kilogram of cesium, start to see heart problems. This is permanent. 50 atoms a kilogram, there's holes in their hearts. There's like 6,000 children every year in Chernobyl. In fact, in Japan, in a study in 2019, there's 14.2% per 100,000 births need open heart surgery to correct congenital malformation, which is 14,200 children out of 100,000 need open heart surgeries. No, but let's worry about there's leaves on the tree, so Dana must be wrong. 6 out of 10 Fukushima children got diabetes, but let's worry about the leaves on the trees. That seed of doubt in people, right? Irreversible heart damage for children with 50 atoms a kilogram. Oh, what's the legal limit in Japan? 100 atoms a kilogram? How do you think that's going to work out? And they're only looking at cesium, but do you really think they're checking? Is anybody really that gullible to think that they're checking? By the way, the biggest byproduct of the radiated fuel rod is curium isotopes. And you need lead shielding 20 times thicker than you do for plutonium. And plutonium killed all the animals in all the experiments. Multiple tumors. And the most popular tumor from plutonium, by the way, was skeleton tumors. And you can't give them pain remedies, pain relief. It's a terrible way to die. I wouldn't even wish it on Rob or my worst enemies. Radiation in small doses could actually be disproportionately worse. Small doses. You know, like the ones that covered the entire planet in just 20 days or so. You know, that's not small doses, folks. The numbers are exceptional. Thyroid cancer risks last the entire life. Thyroid abnormalities in children is 55% of Fukushima girls tested 11 to 15. These are tumors. So that means the children are producing radioactive hormones for the rest of their life. And when you're seeing these particular abnormalities, then you can quantify easily that they're producing radioactive stem cells because their skeleton is contaminated. And what does a child need the most is hormones and stem cells. And that's true for every species. Fukushima girls have 3 times more thyroid tumors than boys. 3 times more. And there's 79% more medium-sized tumors than boys. This is going to be applicable to every female every species. This is not just humans. This is why we're looking at an extinction event. But let's worry about why there's leaves on the tree, right, Rob? Let's get that little seeded out. How desperate is Rob, I wonder? Over 35% of young people tested have thyroid tumors. Human embryos in the United States likely bioaccumulating radioactive iodine and cesium, strontium, uranium, plutonium, americium, neptunium. The list is very long, by the way. And all of them are going to wreck the health of whoever and whatever species we're talking about. 35.8% of Fukushima children with thyroid tumors. 13,646 of 38,000. Pre-Fukushima was 1 in a million. So when you scale that one up, you're looking at 358,000 out of a million children with thyroid tumors. They're producing radioactive hormones for the rest of life. But let's worry, not about that stuff, not about none of this stuff. Let's worry about there's leaves on a tree in Japan, so maybe Dana's wrong. I never heard anything so silly in my life, or insidious in my life, really. I don't know. It's hard to believe Rob is not a pro-nuclear useful idiot, see? To say something like that. In fact, I don't know if anybody's ever said that one to me before. That's like a Rod Adams thing to say, you know? Under 3% of the children exposed to Chernobyl while in the womb were diagnosed as healthy at the age of 7. And Chernobyl was a paper towel compared to Fukushima, but Chernobyl is not no paper towel, I can tell you that much. But compared to Fukushima, it's like a paper towel. 3 million children required treatment because of Chernobyl. Many will die prematurely. Like if you're treated because of Chernobyl, then you're going to be sick for the rest of your life. Radiation doesn't go away. You can't get it out of your body. You can get some out of your body, but once it sequesters in your muscles, your organs, and your bones, it's never coming out of your body. Health physicists in the United States worried about inhaling hot particles from Fukushima because a single one can cause an autoimmune trigger that'll devastate your life in increments over years. Inhaling just one hot particle, just a single one, can cause a cancer. So you inhale the anthropogenic man-made hot particle into your body. It sequesters in your muscles, your organs, your bones. Your body attacks it now for the rest of your life with white blood cells. Every second for the rest of your life. It's pulsing energy. So it's wrecking chromosomes and DNA and cells. And your body has to repair all of that. Millions of repairs every second. And then it explodes again. Your body can't do that. So your immune system now is compromised. So you're more susceptible to pathogens and viruses that were normally considered harmless and innocuous and benign. But let's worry about, there's leaves on the tree in Japan, so maybe Dana's wrong. Maybe Dana don't know what he's talking about. A single atom in your body can cause, eventually, because what happens, your body attacks it for the rest of your life and it builds the sarcophagus around that atom. It could take a couple of years, could take a couple of decades, could take 50 years, but that's what will happen. Eventually, your body, the white blood cells, perpetually attacking it every second of every day. And your white blood cells, by the way, you displace oxygen and nutrition with the red blood cells in order to create every white blood cell. Cesium immediately damages the heart muscles, and that's slow acting. And so your body eventually builds a sarcophagus around it, and when it builds that sarcophagus around that anthropogenic man-made atom in your body, you call that a tumor. And do you know that cancer had morphed in the species on the west coast of British Columbia, Canada, where cancer was jumping from species to species that never ever had cancer or ever had cancer before, and that every starfish that we found on the research expeditions for 6 years was full of tumors. It was disfigured and full of tumors. And that evidence is up at the nuclear proctologist. It's free for everybody. Everybody can make a documentary out of it. And I find it hard to believe that Rob is innocent, because I was shown documentation and evidence. I just find it impossible to believe that he was innocent, that he didn't know any better. When radioactive cesium enters the body, 75%, in fact, he can call in. I'll call him back if he wants me to. 709-589-4406. Love to hear from you. When radioactive cesium enters the body, 75% lodges in the heart and the muscle tissues, including the heart. The rest of it goes everywhere else, into your bones, into your lungs, into your thyroid. Any gamma will end up in your thyroid, not just iodine-131, by the way. So xenon will cause dramatic increases in lung cancer. Have we seen an increase in lung cancer worldwide now? Because that's a xenon plume model based on 20 days. And studies. 450,000 times background levels just in Washington alone. That's not an opinion or a conjecture. That's a fact. That was a study. And if Rob was new, right, he would have he would have said, "I'm sorry, I didn't know," or "Gee, I wasn't aware of this," or anything like that. He didn't, did he? Or she, or whoever the pro-nuclear community was that used that pseudonym. Nuclear plant workers develop cancer despite radiation exposures below legal limit. But see, it caused that little divide, right? That's what it's all about. Just caused that divide. A little shadow of a doubt. But I can overwhelm you with documentation, right? That's why they're not going to call in. Because the tricks they're using on the average person ain't going to work here. That's why they don't call into these shows. Because I got a screen, and I'll bring up the documentation, and we'll drop them on their heads over and over and over and over, long after they hang up. Because that's the moral and ethical thing to do, right? And if you look at how many thousands and thousands of attacks I've taken over the years, I thought I heard it all, but that's a new one on Dana. That actually is a new one for me. Outraged. The Federal Training Manual for Nuclear Plants referred to sickened nuclear plant workers as Freddy Kruegers. This industry is the worst thing that could ever happen to anybody, any planet. You may be interested to know that radioactive rainfall occurs around all nuclear power plants during normal operations. And that's a really interesting statement. Radioactive rainfall Like, it's hard to comprehend. It's not radioactive rainfall. It's 120,000 liters from each pool being boiled off. And each pool is splitting atoms. The water is full of those atoms. It evaporates out. See, my job is not to play the nice guy. It's not. We got no time for nice guy routines, unfortunately. The nuclear industry also made it impossible. Unbelievably impossible to have a conversation. And if you look at the censorship on me tonight, it's absurd. You look at the video last night, the censorship on that, and that was a great video last night. The censorship is absurd, isn't it? Every nuclear power plant is surrounded by farms. But Japan takes it a whole different level. They're growing food right alongside of 1-ton bags in a nuclear wasteland, surrounded by nuclear wastelands. But when you look at the fact that every nuclear power plant, except for a few, as far as you can see, is surrounded by farms, that should terrify you. Because it's clear by those statistics that they're doing this to you on purpose, poisoning you in the supermarkets worldwide. And they know that the food is going to suck up the radiation. They have millions and millions of these studies. And they know immediately the food is going to suck up that radiation. And then when you ship it to the supermarkets, because, you know, all your nuclear plants are surrounded by farms, they're going to poison you in the supermarkets. This is not an accident. This is an 80-year agenda. They know the difference. The academic studies are crystal clear that they know the difference. And so it's not an accident that almost every single nuclear power plant is surrounded by farms. But the farms, they still got leaves on the tree, Dana. So therefore it can't be true. Right? You create this little seed, which is, that definitely sounds like Rod Adams' routine to me. I don't know about you, but I know how Rod Adams works. And we talked about him recently, so he's a predator, make no mistake about it. He's a coward predator too, isn't he? Rod Adams. Does anybody really think that all these farms, nuclear power plants are surrounded by farms is an accident? Does anybody really believe that they're not trying to poison you in your supermarkets, in your stores, in your restaurants, in your hotels? And you don't think for a second they're not targeting your children? You think that the industry doesn't know that children, female species of all species, including humans, are 4 times more susceptible to tumors than the boys are? If you get rid of the female population, what happens to the species? It goes the way of the dinosaur. Can you imagine how evil you got to be to engineer every nuclear power plant to be surrounded by farms? Because you know the radioactive fallout from the fuel pools of every one of them. It breaks my heart sometimes because it overwhelms, the facts overwhelm me, and I can't sugarcoat things anymore. That's a pretty, typically that would be considered a flaw, right? But the industry has turned me into who I am. I'm the way I am because the industry has attacked me so much for so long, and from every direction you can conceive. They played every trick and every game in the book on me. And they always got a new one around the corner. They're growing food in a nuclear wasteland in Japan, right alongside the nuclear meltdowns. Right along the other side is millions of 1-ton bags of radiation. They're growing it and harvesting it and shipping it. Right? I can't rationalize that. And I can't sit and pretend it's not happening. 23% higher incidences of childhood leukemia within 16 kilometers of a disease factory / nuclear power plants. My excuses. Should deadly nuclear power be banned worldwide to try and save the humans and the species from going extinct? And 19 likes. I'm surprised I got that many. And last night's video was a great video, wasn't it? Close that down. Big numbers on a Geiger count night, isn't it? So last night's video got 109 views. And that video I really articulated what the lawyers are, what their lies are, and how we can hold them accountable. The law that we can use to take down the racketeering statues that we can take them down with. That one got censored. I've never seen that censored. Whenever you see my videos with low numbers, they're good videos. They're not censoring me because they're bad videos. We got to stop these sorts of reports coming out. This was Dr. Geraldine Thomas from United Kingdom, from Imperial College of London, who for a hobby used neutron beams on children until he dropped dead. And she does the same to the kids that make it into the university. She turns them into monsters that will come out and attack everybody for the rest of their lives. The entire nuclear industry does this. That's their routine. That's their trick. That's their gig. And anybody that makes fun of me, or anybody that ridicules me, anybody that mocks me, you really have to question why. Because I don't see any humor in the things that I'm showing people. I don't see any humor in the harm, in the perpetual harm. I don't see the fact that we're in real trouble. Where the species are almost exterminating themselves to the point now where denying is not possible. You can't deny what's going on. The evidence now. Children's health problems increasing. Japan's doctor. Incurable stomach aches, chest pains, nosebleeds that don't stop, diarrheas. Inhaling just one hot particle can cause a cancer. The International Atomic Energy Agency, this is the strangest statement imaginable. In 2011, June the 2nd, the International Atomic Energy Agency, which doesn't have any sovereignty over any country, it can't convict you of anything, it can't put you in jail, it can't give you a fine. They're a corporation like McDonald's, but they're part of a military-industrial complex, and they've been bludgeoning humanity long before Fukushima, long before Hiroshima and Nagasaki. They were the League of Nations, right? They're IAEA is part of UN. UN is a military-industrial complex. And they're the arbiters, allegedly, of the facts of nuclear, for instance, with the International Atomic Energy Agency. And that they're allowable radiation standards, why should we give a shit about them? We can't come up with facts on our own? Really? The millions and millions and millions and millions of studies we've done, we can't come up with our own assertions. That their standards, though, that is used worldwide, are based on benefit. Homeostasis, not safety. In other words, their standards are based on natural. So when they say it's safe to have this much radiation, they're not talking about man-made radiation. They're talking about natural radiation. Then they conflate it with the deadly man-made radiation, and you get sick and you die, or you watch your loved ones die. And then, of course, the little bits of you will die. These are misery machines. That's what they are. These are disease factories. And calling them anything less than a disease factory is a crime against your loved ones and your friends and your families and yourself. I don't live in a world with hope until the world stands up and comes out and lets the industry have it. That's when hope will exist again. Right now, we don't have hope because the world won't make a stand. The world won't gut up and do the moral and ethical thing. Because the nuclear industry has them hypnotized. But we have to find a way to break that destructive. Like the evidence we got is perpetual evidence. I can sit here for weeks and weeks and weeks and go through academic studies showing you the same stuff. When they do studies on radiation, let me show you something. I really want you to appreciate how many facets, when there's a nuclear accident, they don't just look at thyroid cancers. They don't just look at leaves on trees. And they do a lot of studies to manipulate you and deceive you on top of that. Let me bring some to beer for you. Because it's really difficult to comprehend what happens after a nuclear accident. There's hundreds of billions of dollars dumped into studies. I want you to see how many facets they study. Because you kind of got to see it to appreciate the madness of what I'm trying to explain to you. Sometimes it's not possible to explain it. You got to see it with your own two eyes. And I'm just going to flash through studies. And what I want you to look at and try to absorb is the different stuff they're studying. And by doing the studies, they're acknowledging, now they're trying to downplay. A majority of studies are meant to downplay it. But what they are doing is showing you that it permeates everything. That it assimilates itself into absolutely everything. So don't worry if you don't understand every one of these studies. Don't think about that part. But just look at the different stuff that they're going to study, that they study. And then when you see these blue names, they're just people that are paying mortgages and putting their children through colleges by doing these studies. It's impossible to appreciate or rationalize how many facets of the ecosystem, because it's every facet of the ecosystem that they're going to do the studies on. It's every facet. And many of the studies are meant to downplay it, misrepresent it, and just to deceive you or policymakers or anything else. But they study everything because radiation gets into everything. It destroys everything with replicating cells. So they have to study everything with replicating cells, and they do. And they go down the details of the details, the minutiae of the minutiae of the minutiae, to the point where it's dizzying what they study. After a nuclear accident, they study every facet of the biosphere, the ecosystem, the humans. It's really frightening because they know. They don't study all of these facets because they're harmless and innocuous and benign. They need to downplay it. They need to quantify it for the ones that are making the policies. See, it's okay. But when you look at the big picture, when you look at all the academic studies they're producing and all of these different facets of every facet of the ecosystem, every facet of the ecosystem is studied because radiation permeates itself into every facet of your body and every facet of the biosphere and the ecosystem. I can't when I'm gathering up these studies, I'm literally in shock. And it takes days and days for the shock of just this kind of exposure to wear off me. Because it stuns me that they know so much, yet they put so much effort into saying that very little is known about the effects of anthropogenic man-made radiation. You'll see them use those quotes perpetually. Very little is known about man-made radiation's effects upon humans, that's one of the most cowardly things conceivable when you hear those statements. When you see all these studies and you still live in the dark, whose fault is it? When you refuse to believe the truth. I'm not talking to my regular people. I'm never talking to my regular people, by the way, that are here, obviously. I'm talking to the policymakers and the investors and the nuclear industry itself. And I never claimed for a second that I was a nice person. The industry created who you're looking at right now. I'm not bitter. I'm just not able to take shit anymore. I'm not able to sugarcoat stuff anymore. I'm not able to pretend. I'm just not able to do it. And because I care so much about everything and everybody, there's an incredible burden always on my conscience and on my shoulders. I can't shake that off. Because the world should be doing what I'm doing. And after all these years, it's not. And it's hard for me to rationalize that with all this documentation that silence is the only option we got. And I know that the regular people that come here don't understand. Well, not that don't understand, that they understand everything I'm saying. That's why they're here. They get that. But to explain this to a policymaker or an investor in a little 30-second clip is not going to work. Or in a 30-minute clip is not going to work. And so typically I'm going to do an hour and a half, 2 hours. Because I know I get one shot. They might give me that latitude of watching the whole video. If you do, we win. Every time too. They can live in denial, but they can't forget what they saw, they can't forget what they heard, and they can't forget the fact that I'm 100% honest 100% of the times. And that I chose the hardest way to tell the story by providing the documentation for all of my assertions. I don't do a radio show where I don't provide you with anything, I just talk and talk and talk. And there's nothing wrong, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I chose the route where denial is not possible, which is the hardest, most difficult route. And in order for me to do that, I had to buy extremely cumbersome and expensive equipment so I can handle anything I throw at it, and that it would be flawless, and that I can do it perpetually. And when you see all of these studies of any kind of radiation, every kind of radiation, there's not a single one here, not a single study that, when you put these together, the conclusion is never going to be that radiation is good. The only conclusion is, holy shit, we got to get rid of this. And I hate that. I hate the fact that we're still doing this all these years later. I'm horrified that we're still doing this all these years later. I'm mortified that we're still doing this all these years later. And I know I'm going too fast for you to read anything. I get that too. I'm just showing you the perpetual, relentless studies they do after an accident. And what I'm showing you is that it has infiltrated and infested as a plague would every facet of your body's functions, every facet of your body. It's not just your skeleton, it's not just your heart, it's not just your thyroid. It's every facet of your body. There's a catastrophic autoimmune trigger going on. This is true for every species. I simply can't live in denial because I'm cursed with this information. I can't ignore it. I can't pretend it's not happening. I won't pretend it's not happening. I couldn't. All the years of doing the research expeditions and not having a bird in the harbor at nighttime with my boats will never stop haunting me, will never stop terrifying me. And would do it to anybody else that experienced it. Going into the woods and not hearing any insects will never escape my reality, right? Going to the tidal zones, as I showed you at the beginning, and seeing an extinction event. I can't go to sleep at night and not see that. There's not a day where I don't think about this stuff all day long. This is what I think about all day long. Because when I'm reading the stories, I'm like, well, I got all these studies showing that you know all of this. They study all, so they know everything that I'm showing you now. These are studies. They know, and this is not even a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a percent. And I have 60,000 of these studies. And every one of them are different. And every one of them, the academics who've done the study, typically done a study to manipulate and deceive you. And curse you and your loved ones for the rest of their future with a plague that you can't perceive. You can't smell it or hear it or feel it or taste it or touch it. But when you look at the studies, you can't deny that it's real. You can't deny that they know the difference. You can't deny that every nuclear power plant surrounded by farms is because they know it's the catastrophic health effects from the consumption of the radioactive food, right? Radiation doesn't just land there, it circles the whole planet. There's invisible plumes from 1,000 fuel pools every day. And we live in that one moment. This is that one moment where we have a so-called global ability to talk to each other and to enlighten each other and to nurture each other and to inform and rally to do the moral and ethical things so that the future might have some species, so that the future might have humans, so that the future, because the radiation is never going to go away. It'll be here long after we're gone. And all the fuel on this planet is vented into the environment, splitting atoms into the environment. And there's nothing on the planet with an autoimmune trigger to defend against it, as you can see. They're not doing these perpetual studies because it's like a banana or a potato chip or walking in sunshine or climbing a mountain or flying on an airplane. They're doing these studies because they know that the biological effects are catastrophic to everything with replicating cells. And so sometimes I have a lot of contempt, don't I? And how do I not, really? How do I control my contempt most days? This is the biggest question. This is the most amazing question, really. I do that because I love everybody and all the species so much that I know I have to tone it down a little bit. No matter how upset I am, I have to maintain as much as I can, my cool, in order to articulate and inform the population of the incredible dangers and harms and threat, an imminent threat and catastrophic threat that we are all facing. Because I don't know what else to do. I can't sit in silence. I just couldn't do it. I can't do it. I can't have a normal day. I can't turn off what I know. I can't turn off the fact that 6 years of research expeditions, 6 years. So all those studies I showed you is the reason why those beaches are naked. And they know it. And that's why they attacked me while I was out there doing it. You wouldn't know if I was the worst person on the planet, because I went out on the ocean and documented 27,000 islands. I just took my time and meandered through the islands And the work that I had to do, every day was torture, trying to do the work. Every day was a nightmare. And every day you have to get out there and get on the beach before low tide as the tide's falling. Get on the beach and document it. And when the tide's coming back up, do the best you can. And maximize the amount of time you got on the beaches. Because the species they're missing. And I used to always feel I would find an oasis, like to your left. And it didn't happen. And what that meant was this is an extinction event. And so we went back for 5 more years, and the species didn't recover. So now we know for facts the food chain is broken, period. And then when we see all the emaciated whales, thousands and thousands of each species showing up emaciated, and that the migratory birds will fly along the coastline, and there's no longer anything there for them to eat. The coastline is now empty. And so that's why we see millions of birds showing up emaciated. Because you can't supplement their diet anymore, because the radioactive fallout has denied them the ability to reproduce on top of that. And all those studies I've shown you just now is why the species to your left are now exterminated. And that the documentation, the studies I'm showing you, quantify that they know it. They know why the species are all gone, right? So they didn't do all these studies because they were bored. They knew. And it's hard to appreciate. It's for the average person, it's just they can't picture this, right? But hopefully the ones that do manage to find me, the policymakers, the investors, will get some closure. And will say no to nuclear. Because if they want to have their children and their friends and their families and their loved ones have any kind of a future at all, the only option we have is to turn on the nuclear industry like they have turned on you. They deserve that. They deserve your contempt. They're begging for your contempt. And the studies they produced shows their contempt for you, don't it? The majority of these studies are meant to downplay the adverse effects of radiation. They have to study every facet of the ecosystem because radiation permeates every facet and destroys everything. There's not a single thing on this entire planet of replicating cells that has an autoimmune trigger to defend against the monstrous, disgusting, despicable, revolting, parasitic nuclear industry's emissions. And every nuclear power plant is hemorrhaging emissions. Invisible plumes covering the entire planet from 1,000 fuel pools worldwide every day. Each one producing plumes that will cover a planet and is assimilated in everything. And just because it doesn't kill it right away, that don't mean it's not incredible danger. And an example of that is that you can't find spiders in the forest on the west coast or the east coast of Canada. But you can find them on you can find them on houses, on garbage cans, on trucks. You can't find them in the forest because the forest sucks up the radiation. The radiation goes to the top of the plants and the trees and pulses energy at the speed of light every second. Insects can't tie onto that. But the tree or the houses and furniture outdoors or automobiles and stuff like that, the spider webs you are finding are deformed, but your man-made objects are not sucking up radiation, so they can tie onto that. And there's only a few species. Out of the 500,000 per acre that you would expect to find, you're finding nothing in the woods. And when we discovered that and quantified that, they took down my other YouTube channel with 24,800 subscribers while I was out on a research expedition looking for spiders and other species. They took down my website because they knew I was out in the middle of the woods. And so I had 24,800 subscribers for 5 years. I never gained one, never lost one. But when I finally understood what was going on with the spiders, because I would look at spider webs to see which species were in an area, right? And all of these studies you're looking at is all the facets that radiation damages. And they need to downplay it. And they're not stupid, are they? Look at all these studies. They're not stupid. They're not the slightest bit stupid. They're just evil. They're just scumbags. They're just monsters. And we should be monster hunters. Because they will exterminate everything in order to survive. They have no conscience. They have no moral compass. They couldn't care less. They hate you, the reality of it is. They despise you. And they know the adverse effects. And I can show you video after video after video of the experts talking to the media saying, well, very little is known about the effects of low-level radiation. But after you look at all these studies, do you believe that story? Do you not realize how evil that academic, incredibly educated, articulated, wealthy academic actually is? Their job is to destroy your ability to have a future. And every other species, all 8 million species, they 100% understand every one of these studies. They studied it. And I can't show you a fraction of 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 a percent of the studies. I don't have access to it on top of that, right? I have 60,000 studies to show you they study everything. There is nothing they don't study. They study the pubic hair on a fruit fly's testicle. And they'll get funding for it too. I know it sounds funny, but it's not. They study everything, and you, and your loved ones. They think of you as a lab rat. They don't see you as human. They have the utmost contempt for you. They have nothing but absolute hatred and contempt for you. How can we have all these studies and pretend that very little is known? It's absurd, isn't it? There's nothing they don't know. They're targeting you right down. I mean, all the plants they're producing for pharmaceuticals are radioactive because of the radioactive fallout. They know. And they're hiding it from you, and they hate you. They're out to get you, and they're really, really good at it. And every one of these studies costs a fortune. And it's paid for by the taxpayers. And then the study's weaponized against you and used to bludgeon your ability to have a normal life or a future or any kind of health or healthy children. And this stuff destroys everything, every species. There's not a single species that this stuff doesn't attack perpetually, every second for the rest of its existence. And after 80 years of emissions, when should we rise up and call a scumbag a scumbag? When do we have that liberty? When do we take that latitude? And I'm telling you, you are in real trouble on this planet. And I will have outbursts. I will lose my mind sometimes. And if I don't, then I'm not human, am I? And it's not good to do that. It's not good to have outbursts. It's not good to be upset. It's not good. But it is. It's appropriate. It's vital in many, 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 many ways to demonstrate your contempt and your hatred included. They know. Everything I'm telling you is a fraction of what they know. They know they're scumbags. They revel in it. Their hatred is complete. They have taken over your universities, your schools, your media, the key positions in your government in increments over decades. It's well thought out. They're very methodical in destroying your ability to fight back. And they figure they got us now, and they're probably right. But that don't mean we can't give them what for. And we and this planet and every species on this planet, we're the only ones with a voice. So don't be afraid to use your voice. That's what they're terrified of the most, is your voice. You might say, well, I'm nobody. I'm just an everyday person. Well, so am I. And so is everybody else. But the minute you sat here and watched this entire video, you're no longer uninformed. You're very informed. I can't keep up with it. The information, the documentation. And when I was gathering all of this up, I was, you're hypnotized, and it takes many, many days. And on a typical weekend, this is what I used to do, to the point where I had to give it up. Because I wake up crying, wake up vomiting. I can't sleep at night. Because how do you escape this stuff, see? After all of these years, and I'm so thankful that I'm aware of this. I'm so thankful that I gathered up all this stuff. I'm so thankful each and every one of you out there that has the courage and fortitude to look at the truth, to hear the truth, to see the truth, to appreciate that education is the way forward, and that is the weapon, the one weapon we have against the industry and racketeering statues. Needs to be used against these vicious, hateful, disgusting, parasitic creatures. They know everything I'm showing you. They spent fortunes on every single one of these clicks, these studies. Fortunes. They know every detail of detail of the detail of detail. If that doesn't prove that this is on purpose, what does, I wonder? It's absurd, isn't it? And remember, the majority of these studies are meant to downplay nuclear and radiation. The vast majority of these studies are used to manipulate and deceive you. It blows my mind that we are in a position to make a difference. And that's why we're here as often as we can. That's why we do the best we can. And I'm not going to pretend that I'm the best every day. I'm not going to try to pretend that. I'm not going to pretend I don't have my bad days. And every good day is because I'm a really good actor. I put on a good face to try to lull the policymakers and the investors here so we can terrorize them with facts. Let me see where I'm to here. Well, let's close the poll down. Should deadly nuclear power be banned worldwide to try and save humans and the species from going extinct? Give me a hell yeah. Hell yeah, Dana. A big shout out to James Lucid, man. He's got like 215 songs, 216 songs. I made a mistake. I said 190, did I? I'm stupid. I really, really like his Meltdown Queen, his latest song. Links are in my description. And if you see his name in the comments section, just click over and watch his music. He's got absurd amount of... it's amazing what he's got created there. It's wonderful, right? That's the only way to describe it. It's an absolute blessing. So get over there and enjoy that music. I'm going to play his Meltdown Queen again because I played it a lot today. Something about that song, man. It's so right, eh? And now he's done the AI videos with it. It's even more special. And James has gone to war, I don't know how many times now. He donated another 420 last night. It's a very humbling thing for me, by the way. And all I can do is say thank you so much, right? It doesn't seem right sometimes. I should be able to do something more. And, I always say these numbers so that the people that donated know that I got the money, right? Because the industry has a pretty sneaky history. And so over the last 10 years, I've made it a point of acknowledging everybody that donated and how much, so that they know that I actually received it. Because they know when I get it, I'm going to turn it into a weapon against the industry. That's where the money goes. I'm obsessed with fighting this industry because that is my calling, right? Hopefully that's your calling too. And hopefully you find your niche to go out and attack this industry. Because I think that's the appropriate way to explain it, is attacking the nuclear industry. We're going to play that Meltdown Queen. It looks like James is censored, incredible too. But at least he's still moving forward. Let me bring him up on the screen here, actually, because I can't see. Oh, he's got 1.9 thousand subscribers. That's crazy. That is so crazy. Let me show you why that's crazy. Well, it's not crazy, but it's just... He had... Last Thursday, that's me. Last Thursday, he had, a week ago today, he had 1,620. Now he's got 1,900 subscribers. That's insane. Like in a great way. That's so... And he's putting out music, and he's the first person in history to create AI music, and now he's the first person in history to ever... Which is because we're at the infancy of this. He's the first person to ever create AI videos and AI anti-nuclear music, put them together, marry them together. And so when you listen to this song, this closing out song, I can guarantee you that there's nothing wrong with this. We'll see everybody on Sunday unless there's something happens on the weekend. And if I offended anybody, my apologies. Hugs for you and your loved ones. We'll see everybody on Sunday. You have a great night and a great weekend. And if you want to contribute, go down to my descriptions and you'll see 2 ways to donate me. We've never had an issue. Through PayPal or credit cards at my website. And you can use any credit card now at PayPal. You don't need an account. And we do need the help desperately. So if you're in that, you've had that ability, it's a great thing.
She's untouchable, yeah, she's unstoppable. Tick, tick, tick. Hearts on split, split, split. Watch her move, boy. She's your meltdown hit. She walks in like a savior draped in radioactive silk. Promises the future, but her balance starts to tilt. Her heels strike the ground, they call it innovation, but every move she makes is pure detonation. Tick, tick, watch her light the fuse. Her lips are like ignition, sparks in every word she speaks. She dances through collapse while her empire springs a leak. She's got blueprints in her pocket, cores hidden in her clutch, and every man who follows her forgets she burns too much. Snap, snap, she's the queen of chaos. Tick, 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 watch her take control. She's a meltdown queen with a heart so cold. Snap, 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 you're under her spell. She's the meltdown queen and she does it so well. Break it down. She keeps a coded suitcase, her secrets stitched in seams. Her nails are brushed with graphite, her plans are laced with schemes. They call her the solution, but her lies are all on tape. And when the fallout settles, there's no chance to escape. Now you're caught in her trap. Shaman Marianne. Oh, she's flawless, she's insane. Your dream girl, your nightmare, your chain reaction flame. She's untouchable, unshakable, impossible to tame. But when she melts down, boy, you'll forget her name. Tick, tick, she's the game you'll lose. Tick, 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 she's a chain reaction. Every step she takes leaves destruction. Snap, 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 her game is supreme. Meltdown queen, she's the star of your dream. You don't even know. She's a perfect weapon, her brilliance blinding clear. Her plans are sealed in circuits and she smiles to engineer. Every corporation crowns her of the prize, while the ocean full and cities vaporize. Tick, tick, she's the queen of disguise. Tick, 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 she's untouchable, unstoppable. She'll steal your soul, leave you unlovable. Snap, 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 what's left to say? Meltdown queen and she'll blow you away.